Running it back to the back to the back to the bank today. Running it back to the back to the back to the bank today. Running it back to the back to the back to the bank today. Running it back to the back to the back to the back to the back. Running it back to the bank today. Baby, I feel it relaxed today. Gotta go try to relax today. Whoa, whoa. Gotta fill out all my apps today. Cry from my.
Welcome to the DMV's Vibe podcast. I'm Miss T.
And I'm for the swagger.
And today is a special segment. This is the generational conversation, also known as the Woman We Are. We do have a livest moderator in the city with us, Miss Joy.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Yes.
And we're going to have our moderator introduce our panelists today.
All right, everybody. So for the first panelist, we have Mrs. Lawana.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Yes.
My alto sister.
Yes, my alto sister.
All right, and our second panelist is Mrs. Jacinta. Ready to give it up for Jacinta? Yes. And last but definitely not least is Miss Tina coming to the stage.
Thank y'all so much for joining us today. This has been a show in the making. I would say since the beginning of this year, we talked about doing this show. And the importance of the conversation and discussing womanhood, sisterhood, career, social life, just with across different generations. And so for those who are willing to share their age, we're not going to make you share your age if you tell us what generation you fall in. So as y'all know, we always tell our age. We are, well, right now we're two different ages. 'Cause I just had a birthday.
Not for long.
I just had a birthday. So I just turned 37.
And now I'm 36, but I'll be 37 in 3 weeks.
Woo woo.
Yeah.
Andre, if you okay with sharing your age or your generation?
Oh, I'm the youngest, but I'm 27.
Ms.
Baby.
I am 54 as of September 2nd. Go Virgos. Hey.
She look good. Pretty.
And I am 63.
Nice. Yes.
Black women up here looking good.
Right?
They say black don't cry.
And it don't.
It don't, as long as you moisturize.
Yes. Drink your water.
So I do want to start off our first topic being womanhood. What did that mean to you, starting with Miss Lawana and Miss Tina? What did that mean to you in your 20s?
You want to go first or you want me to go first?
You first.
Okay. So everybody always mess with me about this. I grew up in Florida. And so everybody know I'd be like, I'm from Florida. Shayla know because I say it all the time at church. But so for me, it wasn't really so much like a thing. Like my mom was very girly, very like, perfume and heels and pulled together when she walked out the door. I was never like that. I was a tomboy. And jeans and t-shirt, jeans and a sweatshirt, tennis shoes. That was and kind of like how I am right now. That was my call of the day. But I didn't really know about like my womanhood in my 20s. I was just, living life and just not really thinking about it so much. As I got older and I started doing things like wearing dresses, wearing skirts, and being a little more soft and a little more feminine. And my mother was overjoyed when she saw me wearing, that kind of stuff, and heels, makeup, all that kind of stuff. And that wasn't until like my late 30s, really, that I just kind of embraced my femininity. But as far as womanhood, I just thought as long as I'm out here doing what I need to do, taking care of myself, making sure my family is good, making sure I'm good, and doing the things that I need to do to live this life, that was it for me as far as like womanhood was concerned. I embraced femininity later on, but as you can see now, I'm back to,
Comfortability.
I'm comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like this whole COVID thing, it sucked. But this tennis shoe revolution with dresses and skirts and everything, I'm like, we're going to embrace this 100%.
It was
but
the
every
ankle
now
for
and
me.
again, right? Every now and again, I pop out with a little, little something.
And she do.
To just be like, ooh, I want to feel a little curvy today. But for the most part, I just think as long as you are comfortable with who you are, that's your womanhood. You know what I'm saying? You just got to be comfortable with who you are, know who you are, and if you don't know, figure that out. You know, get you a circle of friends. My circle of friends is a dot, and I'm good with that because that's the people that I know they got me and I got them, right? But making sure like they're good. That to me is more about womanhood than what you wearing or what you doing. Just making sure you good and everybody around you is good because that's what we do as women. We caretake,
Yeah.
and it's about making sure that you taking care of you first. Put your own mask on first, then put the help other people with theirs.
And we're going to come back to the building and sisterhood and talking about having a group or a circle around you supporting. For you, womanhood.
So womanhood in my 20s was me trying to find myself, trying to figure things out, really just trying to figure out where my needs were and figuring out who I am. Looking at my mom, my grandmother, kind of seeing them, but then I realized that I wasn't quite like them in various different levels. And as time went on, so did my expectation of who I was as a woman changed. Each phase, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, and we won't go on, but each of those I started to build more confidence as time went on, as things started to change. My career started to change, and I became more focused on my confidence, how I wanted to carry myself, who I am as an individual, and who I am going to project. How does the world look at me? How my family looks at me as a woman. I think all of that I started figuring it out as time went on and as things in my life started to change. Being married, then being divorced, that changes you a lot. Your whole mindset and mentality. You find strength, spiritual strength, as you go along. So that's the strength that I think I carry from my grandmother and my mother, that they figured some things out early on. My mother was in her 20s and she was married, and I knew that that's not what I really wanted to do, but ended up late 20s, I was married. And so things did look a little different for me. Not having any children also looks very different from the next person, but still loving to be around family constantly and trying to figure out how to navigate life because it's ever changing. We're seeing that now as you hear your friends, you're talking to friends, they're furloughed, they're trying to, take care of their families. They're trying to, as you mentioned, COVID changed the world and definitely changed our expectations of how we saw things, some with isolation, some trying to be a support to the family that was at the distance. My mom was in North Carolina through COVID, so that kind of had my anxiety just a little higher than I expected it to be. But just being able to deal with all the things that life throws you all at once and trying to make sure that you can be a strength for whoever is around you as they need you.
And Jay, for you, while you're in your 20s, what does womanhood mean to you, and how has it changed from you turning 20 to the age that you currently are?
Womanhood for me has looked very different. I would say having my early 20s and going through undergrad experience, HBCU experience, you're just finding yourself, trying to figure out who you are in undergrad, trying to create your own identity for you. And then post undergrad, I was on my own in North Carolina, coming into myself. As soon as I'm starting to figure out myself, I find out I'm about to be a mom. So I'm like, oh my goodness, now I have to try to navigate my womanhood while also adapting to becoming a mother. And that in itself is interesting because you're in your mid-20s and now you're navigating, how do I be a mom? How do I still be a woman? Then I transferred to how do I be a single parent? How do I be a mom? How do I be a woman? And so it's ever changing, like my aunt mentioned, because now I'm in my later 20s And now I have friends who are also mothers. So we're all mothers and our kids are around the same age, but you're still all figuring out am I as, first of all, a daughter of Christ. Then who am I as a mom? Who am I as a daughter? And it's like just praying you don't have an identity crisis along the way. That's pretty much how it is. So the age I am now. Now I'm coming into myself more and my boundaries and who I am. Even if I choose to date, I'm coming into the boundaries I have for myself, the boundaries I have for my daughter, and that whole navigating being a single parent and dating at the same time. And then just the boundaries I have trying to be a mom, support my family, and still continue an adventure on in my future and my career and growth. So, yeah.
I guess I'll go next. As far as womanhood, I would say in my 20s it was a journey. I grew up very much like, I don't want to say a tomboy, but
Tomboys
I
unite.
I love sports. I didn't have a problem dressing up, but I like the element of surprise. And so, like, when people saw me dressed up, it kind of like shocked them because I didn't do it all the time. But I went on a deep journey, I would say the last part of my 20s, when I moved away to Texas, where I just had to forget everyone, forget everything I was taught, everything I've been through, and really just get down to the core of how did I get here, what did I want for myself, and letting go of the expectations that others have put on me. That was a big part of my womanhood because I read a lot about birth order and how it can affect or develop and shape how you become your personality, and things that are expected of you can put a lot of pressure on you. And so I wanted to let go of all of those things, and I found an amazing church in Texas that helped me navigate those things, as well as therapy. Those were two things that really helped me rediscover what I thought womanhood was. Because I was a person who thought my womanhood was going to be wrapped up in how I dressed, how I spoke, where I worked, and those things to me honestly have nothing to do with womanhood. It has everything to do about your journey, your purpose, and creating a life that wouldn't have any resentment, regrets, and being able to stand on what you believe.
Oh, yeah. It's my turn. Womanhood to me is what you make it. Like, for me in my 20s, I think I spent a lot of time living in other people's shadows because people had this certain expectation of me. Always been like the goody two-shoe, whatever, and stuff like that. So, but if y'all only knew. Anywho, but I feel like for me, especially navigating in my 20s versus where I am now, for me, probably like my mid to late 20s is when I kind of started coming into my own. That's when I started my weight loss journey, and it got to a point where I was just determined to live how I wanted to live. And so I started to do things on my own. And when I look back on my 20s, I realized that for me personally, a lot of my friendships and relationships were very codependent. And so it was just like, when I turned, probably right before I turned 30, was when I really started to like branch out. That's when I started to come from underneath everybody else's shadow, because I always did everything with my parents. I'm the only child between my parents. So it was like, I was always with them. Everything was with them. But when I I didn't get my license until I was 28. Don't judge me. So I see the judgment on your face. So So once I really came into that, it allowed me to kind of move away from what everybody else was doing or what everyone expected of me, and it allowed me to gain that independence. And I just kind of slowly but surely just started to thrive on my own. And my 20s, I have absolutely no regrets. Like, I think about, I had some amazing times, amazing memories in my 20s and coming into my womanhood. And I feel like I'm continuously growing as I go through this journey of life, because I really feel like I ain't start thriving until I hit 30. It's like, boing, light bulb. But, yeah.
So before I ask the next question, can everyone tell me, like, if they're the only child, oldest child, youngest child, middle child?
I'm the oldest.
I am the middle child.
I am the oldest child.
I'm the only child between my parents, but I do have a brother on my father's side, and I had a brother on my mother's side. The one on my mother's side passed away. The one on my father's side, I don't talk to him and could care less.
So, similar story. I'm the only child with my mother and my father, but I have a brother on my dad's side. We do still talk. He's a jerk, but we still talk. That's my baby. I love him, but he get on my nerves.
Do you think the expectations of you matter with your birth order?
And I realized I didn't answer your question. I'm the youngest. My brother's older than me. He's 3 years older. You 3 years older. 3. Anyway. I do sometimes. I think that it does make a difference. My brother was, our circumstances were unique, where he was with his mom. I met my brother when I was 3. And I remember the day that my dad was like, "We're going to get your brother." And my parents can't believe I remember that, but I do remember that. But I think in a lot of families that does make a difference. Like, my mother is one of 8, and she's right in the middle. She's number 5 of 8. And I can see in that dynamic that there is like an expectation. Like, my aunt is the eldest. And even now, like, she's like the matriarch of our family on my mother's side, because, my grandparents are all gone. So I think it does make a difference, and I see it more so in their generation than in my generation. Because my dad and my mother and my stepmom, and I have a nephew who my parents raised, so he's kind of like the baby brother. But I can see, like, there's not so much of an expectation by your age or by your birth order in our generation, but in my mom, I see that in theirs. Like, my aunt, she's the eldest, and she still takes care of everybody. And now it's just, out of 8 kids, it's just my mother, my aunt, and my 2 aunts. So it's just the 3 of them left. And even still now, my eldest aunt is still like the caretaker for everybody. We go to her house. She told us years ago, like, this is the family house. So now we go to her house, and she'd be like, "Y'all need to get out of my house." And I'm like, because it's a family house. So, but she fake like she don't like it, but she love it when we come there. She cooks food, and she got wine, and she got stuff to drink, and anybody who comes is made to feel like at home, and so that those roles, I do see that in my mother's generation, and even on my dad's side. Like, my dad is my grandparents had 2 sets of twins, boys, fraternal twins, both times. So they 2 pregnancies, 4 boys. One of my uncles I never met, he passed away, I think the year I was born in 71. But even with them, it's not so, like, my dad is the eldest, right? But it's his brothers are, they're like this, you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't talk all the time. They're not always abundant each other because they don't live right near each other. But my dad is like he's come up as like, I got to take care of my little brothers, right? So I see that more with them and that generation than more so with mine. With us, it's more like, get your crap together. Like, do what you're supposed to do. When you're in school, go to school, get good grades. When you come out of school, get a job. If you have kids, take care of your kids, take care of your family, take care of your house. We're here if you need us. But do those things that, you're supposed to do. And it's equal between all of us.
I wish I could see that.
So I'm the eldest of three, and I do think that you have a lot of stress on you, or pressures, I should say, of being the older child. I always thought that I couldn't mess up, or that I had to set the example for, even though I'm the only girl, which kind of changes the dynamic.
Definitely does.
Yeah.
Definitely does.
Them
The
boys
only
get
girl
to do
to
everything.
have brothers as siblings, and so we're each 5 years apart, and so that also changes some things in terms of how we grew up, and my youngest brother being 10 years apart. But yeah, you do feel the pressure a little bit more than you expect as the oldest child, whether you're in school, whether you're in church, whether, whatever the case may be. And setting the example of how you conduct yourself in and at home or out in public. You want to, be the person that you need to be around family. Again, similar, want to be the glue when you need the glue there. Not really sure what that means from a male's perspective, because their role models and their needs are different.
My dynamic is a little interesting. So between my parents, I am the oldest. And I usually tell people, like, I'm the middle child, I always start with saying, I believe my parents and my sister's mother did a pretty decent, good job, especially among African American families, of making sure we equally felt as much love as possible. So, and even to this day, my daughter calls my sister's mom grandma. Like, she calls her parents grandparents. So it's, I always say, I'm the middle child, because you really can't tell Malish that I'm not her daughter too. Like, you really can't tell her that. And so for me, in that dynamic, I don't want to say, in certain ways I did feel the pressure of, as far as in the household, because me and my sister are 10 years apart, having to maybe guide my little brother or protect him, especially when my parents went through their divorce and their separation and everything that surrounded that. As far as me personally, outside of that, I kind of felt more so your responsibilities. I did feel a little bit of pressure, I guess, about being perfect in perfection, as far as, like, being a good example for your little brother. As far as my sister went, it was like, your sister's out here doing this, so just, like, don't do that. Okay, so it's like, you got three options. You can go to school, go to the military, join some police academy. I said, well, I'm not about to save no one's life on the field, so I'm going to go to school. And I went to school, and then I left school. And, well, I graduated from school. Let me not do that. I graduated from Norfolk State University, behold the green and gold.
Okay.
And then once I became a mother and once I became a single parent, I kind of felt like a pressure of being a single parent, but then also, like, kind of still being an example. It's like, to my little brother. So I was all like, okay, great. I guess I'm going to go to school and get another degree. So I went and I got my master's in business administration.
Okay.
And then
2 degrees hotter.
2 degrees hotter. And then so now it's like, kind of like, I feel the pressure, but it's not so much as, like, as far as a middle child, it's more so of being the first of my siblings to have a child and to give them their grandchild. So now it's like this pressure of being a good parent, and how do I do this, and how do I, like, navigate this role, and also help my parents remember that they are grandparents. Grandparents to that extent. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting journey.
Okay, so it's interesting. So my brother Lee, that passed away on my mom's side, he was 20 years older than me. And then my brother that is still alive, he's 13 years older than me. So it's a big age gap. So not only just the big age gap, but I'm also the only girl and the baby girl. Okay, so I'm spoiled to a certain extent, but everything that I have, like I literally had to work for that because you know my parents really didn't have it like that. But growing up, I did have a relationship with both of my brothers. I remember going to get my brother's name is Dominique, and he actually has the same last name as the people that run the studio. Random. But with my brother, we did hang out. I remember my dad going to be like, okay, we're going to your brother's house. So we used to go pick him up. When that brother, Dominique, went away to the military, like we communicated back and forth. And then he said some off the wall things to me at 13, which is kind of why things fell apart. And then when I tried to bring it back together, basically he need to go talk to the lady. That's what I'm gonna say. But I think for me, because I had older parents, so my parents are baby boomers and they're raising a millennial daughter. So with that, I kind of was more so their child, but like their help. I did all the yard work with my dad, all the boyish things, did sports and stuff like that. So I feel like I really didn't have any like pressure per se, but my biggest thing for my mom was just like, as long as you just go to school, get an education, do what you need to do. And she used to be like, as long as you are in school, taking care of yourself, you can stay at home as long as you need to. But I also felt like I should always be like this goody two shoe. Like I never wanted to let my parents down or like disappoint them. Especially because again, I'm the only child. So it's like as much as black parents be trying to fake, when we do good, they really be proud of that and they feel like that makes them look good.
Agreed.
So for the most part, like, even as an only child, I really did have to work for a lot of the things that I've had. So people always be like, I'm spoiled. Funny, I just had the conversation the other day. But I'm grateful for the upbringing that I had. And I'm actually grateful that my parents did not just give me everything, because I feel like that helped me become the person I am today, to work as hard as I have to get where I am. And so I'm just grateful for that as the only child.
I'm the oldest child for both of my parents. With my mom, I have a brother that's 5 years younger. Then with my dad, I have a sister that's 10 years younger and a brother that's 12 years younger. It was very interesting to grow up that way, just one having to go between two different households, so that means different rules, different things, and things that I could do with my brother, I couldn't do with my sister. Um, I think there was a lot of expectation from both parents when it came to education, and I didn't really have like a super behavior issue expectation. I think I probably stressed my dad out when it came to high school. If he was here to tell that story, if you've ever watched the previous show that he was on, he talks about it.
Yes, he
That
does.
I made him go gray. That's what he said. I made him go gray. He says my sister made him go bald. But expectation wise, once I got out of high school, I just realized, like Jay may be able to tell you, that I was the person who said, "Don't do what I did. Do something else different." I know I was not a good example because I was trying to figure out who I was between two households. For people who are only child, sometimes I used to envy them because it feels like you're having to. I don't like to be in the spotlight, but sometimes it feels like you're overlooked with certain things because it's hard, especially when you have a parent who had you pretty young. They don't. They're still trying to figure out who they are in their career and be a parent along with that, which Jay talked about. So making sure that you have time, and then when you make multiple kids, you're having to divide that time amongst those kids. So being able to balance that, it took me almost into my 30s to really understand what both my mom and dad had to go through raising their children, and to be able to give them grace and understand that they did the best that they could with what they knew. I talked about it before on the show where there's some things that are passed on to us generationally as pressure or expectations, and it doesn't always mean that it's correct just because it's passed on to us, and really understanding that it's okay to do something different. I know my parents probably think I was very unconventional in everything that I've done, but I've always worked very hard, especially when it came to jobs. I always make sure I showed up on time, put my best effort forward. I've excelled at every job I've ever had, and I still contribute that to my parents and grandparents for giving me the work ethic that I had. Expectations, was the pressure hard? I would say yes. I feel like it was very overwhelming, especially when you have siblings, because as you get older, you don't want to disappoint them. It wasn't really me being worried about my parents, it's more so my siblings. Because your parents just keep telling you, they're looking up to you, they're looking up to you. I'm like, well, I hope they don't do nothing I did. I said, well, the one thing I can say my parents can say is they never got a call saying I was in jail. So they never have to come rescue me. But I'm pretty sure that I left them stressed out many a nights because they might not have known where I was. I'm definitely an adventurer. I would go anywhere by myself
That
any
she
time
is.
of the night.
She's not lying.
And I've always just been curious to see what the other side of, and I think that kind of plays into my personality and being a Libra, is I always want fairness. I'm not unbalanced. I help balance other people out. But always wanting to see the other side of things, the other options, and make sure that I'm weighing my decisions correctly. So I've kind of felt that along with the pressure. And as we talked about, different generations being raised by parents of different age, was anyone here raised with the expectation to become a wife?
Okay, so I'm gonna say this. First of all, let me backtrack real quick, because I said to you all that I have a nephew. So my parents are divorced, and my dad remarried, and my dad is still with my stepmom, who is also, I think my stepmom is the eldest of all of her brothers and sisters, and she's also very driven, but she's so homey and sweet. And when you go to her house, she's gonna open all the wine, she's gonna pull out all the fruit, she's gonna cook all the food, and make sure you are full, right? That's her love language. But I have a sister that passed away in 2004, and that's who my nephew came from. So she's my stepsister from my stepmom. But she was tiny and mighty, and I wanted to be like her so bad because she was just feisty. So I just want to throw that out
You're
there.
feisty,
but I will
though.
say,
You're feisty.
I am.
Yes.
Thank you, girl. Thank you. That's a high compliment. As far as being raised to be a wife, no, I was not raised to be a wife, but I saw my mother be taken care of by my dad. And even when they got divorced, I had no clue they were getting divorced. They never fought. They never argued, none of that stuff. It was just, we was just in the house, and then all of a sudden it was okay, well, you're moving with your mom over here, and your brother and I are going to stay here. And I'm like, okay, what is happening, right? And I knew, I was 12, 13, so I knew about divorce. So I kind of figured, okay, well, that's probably what's happening. My mom, when she had me, she was 20. My dad was 26. So back to that, figuring out who you are, womanhood, how do you navigate, my mom, I can say I don't feel like my mother was ever a single mother, because I felt like when they got divorced, my dad was around more. And not because of anything with my mother, because to this day, if my mother calls him and says, I need your help, he's going to be like, okay. And my stepmom will be like, what you need us to do? So I'm blessed in that respect. But I watched my dad take care of my mother. I watched how my dad takes care of my stepmom, and how these two amazing women take care of my dad, because he is a handful. Don't be mad at me because I said that, Daddy.
He a Scorpio, that's why.
He is. And I just watched how this dynamic between the three of them, because I went back to college late. I went back to school in my 40s, and my stepmom and my dad came up for my graduation, and I always relate this story to people, but I had a photo shoot set up at Bill Lee Photography, plug, and with my mom, right, and my mother, and my stepmom, and we were gonna do a photo shoot. So I went to go get my stepmom from the hotel. She comes over, I bring her back to the house, and my mother was already in my apartment. Them two come in, and it's like two old high school girlfriends, like they hugging and kissing on each other, and I'm like, what is happening right now? Because I wasn't expecting that. And then they dismissed me out of my own house, right? So I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? They're like, go get us something to eat or something. Just go do something with yourself. Because we were waiting on the makeup artist to come because we were getting our makeup done, all this whole big production. But I say that to say, I watched these two women who were my dad's current wife, former wife, and they loved on each other. They love on me, and they love on my dad. Every year, my mother is like, your father's birthday is coming up, Father's Day is coming up, Christmas is coming up. What'd you get for your dad, for your stepmom? Like, what did you get for them? What are you gonna do for them? Their anniversary happened in September, and she's like, oh, what are you doing for their anniversary? I've never seen that before in a family dynamic, but I watched how these women love on this man, and he deserves it. Like, he's an awesome, awesome guy. He have his stuff, but he's just a complete family man. I told him, you're the worst bachelor I ever seen. But to watch him, and my uncles, I tell my uncles and my cousins that on my dad's side, they get mad at me for that. But just to watch that dynamic, right? My uncles are all still married to their wives and like 30, 40 years later, and just to see that. So no, I wasn't raised to be a wife, but I was raised to see how you make that happen as a wife. How you navigate and how you compromise and how you don't compromise, right? How you stand up for yourself. And even with your husband, this man that you love more than anything, but it's like, look at here, I love you, but don't do that, don't start that, and we ain't even going over there, and setting those boundaries. Even now, like 39 years later, my stepmom is still setting boundaries for my dad, and I love it. And he listens. He don't want to listen, and he act like he's not. But I see, like, when she says something, when I'm home visiting, she'll be like, Charles, I don't like when you do that. And that's her yelling at the top of her lungs. And he's like, whatever, I'm trying to do so-and-so and so-and-so. But then I'll see later on that he's like, he listened to what she said, and he's doing what she asked him to do. And it's a beautiful relationship to see that happen. Like, he might fuss in the beginning, but he's doing it. So no, I wasn't raised to be a wife, but I've seen what it is to be a wife, and I want to be one so bad. I want to be one real bad.
I feel that.
But these men got to act right, because yeah, that's all I'm going to say about
Ooh,
that.
child.
I'm sure there'll be a question come up about that later, so I'm going to shut up and let somebody else talk.
So, early on, I definitely thought that I was raised to be a wife. I'd watch my mom, whether it was cooking dinner, cleaning house, doing whatever. It was my responsibility to make sure, and again, being the oldest, to help get things done. Seeing what a wife was supposed to do, or what I thought. Well, now that is quite different, because I say to myself, I might be wife material, but is he husband material? And is
That
he?
part.
That'd be the one. That's the
Not
question.
everybody out here is cut out for married life.
Yeah.
I'm a strong believer in that now. And now the dynamics of marriage and the understanding of marriage, for me, has changed. I enjoy my independence, and I have said that I need someone in my life who can respect my boundaries, my independence, but be there as I would be there for them if I needed something or someone. And as I've gotten older, it's really spiritually being there, not necessarily, not even monetarily, but financial, but it is being the whole person.
Yes.
While I work on being the whole person for them. So that standard of wife for me is having lived the way I've lived now is understanding who I am and keeping it real with whoever it is that comes in my life. so that they can understand, hey, I'll be your wife, but I need for you to be that husband that knows and understands me and can read me, you know. And we'll get into that later.
Questions are coming.
Jay.
No, I don't think I was raised to be a wife. Honestly, I feel like I was raised to know my independence, but I also came from a very spiritually grounded household. And so as I watched my parents' marriage and the rise and the fall of their marriage and divorce, and then navigated what a relationship to me should look like, would look like, especially a healthy and equally yoked one. I feel like, I have an idea of marriage and wife, but I feel like my grandmothers, in their own ways, really showed me more so being a balance and being a wife. My grandmother on my father's side showed me strength and resilience in marriage and wife, and honestly, through health, or through sickness and health, she really showed me what that looked like. And my grandmother on my mother's side, she showed me a wife in such a spiritually and beautiful way. I saw them every morning pray for each other. I saw them every morning cover their children, their grandchildren in prayer every single morning. I saw my grandfather really provide for my grandmother, even though they moved out to the country against my grandmother's will and what she wanted. While they was out there, he built her a house from the ground up. He gave her the garden she wanted. So I saw a healthy marriage and wife material. And I just kind of picked out little things from everyone and kind of adapted that into what it will look like, things that I might replicate when I find an equally yoked husband. So, yeah.
Oh, me. So I would say, no, not really. I don't think so. So my parents were married 44 years up until my mother passed away. But a lot of things that my mom would tell me is she would just tell me, don't do this. Don't do this like I did with your father. Don't do this with your husband. Like, because the biggest thing was they were married 10 years before I came. And so my mom was like, it was just them for a long period of time. And she was like, she spoiled my dad so much. And it was to the point where it'd be like, as I got older, I would be looking at my dad like, bruh, come on, you could just go do that. Like, it's not that deep. So I think for me, the biggest thing that my mom really like instilled in me was being independent, but my dad also instilled it in me as well, like being able to provide for myself. I feel like my mom, my Aunt Chelsea, which is my mother's youngest sister that's still alive, because they were like this. They were really like this. Those were the two women to me that kind of like instilled stuff in me and my cousin, because I have a cousin, I call her my sister cousin, because we both are the youngest. We're a year apart. We both have brothers that are 18 and 16 years apart or whatever. So we kind of grew up together, but they kind of both, my mom and my aunt basically instilled in us like being independent, not solely relying on a man. And I know men be like, oh, yeah, whatever. But if my thing is, I never want to put myself in a position where I'm in with a man or he's just completely taking care of me. And first of all, I ain't worked this hard to get a master's plus to be sitting on my behind not doing nothing. I'm just saying. But also, I come from a lineage of where people were married for 45, 50, 55 years. So, and I will say that my uncles took care of their wives. So I feel like I wasn't raised to be a wife, but kind of like Jay said, I saw different elements. I saw different things that I'm like, all right, I'm going to do that with my husband. Oh, no, we ain't doing that. Like, I'm not letting that slide. And also, my grandmother raised 10 with my favorite uncle, kids by herself. She was married to my grandfather, and to my grandfather died. So she had 9. And then Dr. Furlong, in her words, told her she needed to have another baby. So she popped out my uncle at the age of 44. And so right. So even with my grandmother, like, I've watched her and heard her stories about how she raised all 9 of those kids. She never remarried because she said she never wanted to put her daughters in danger of bringing another man into the house. So she never did that. But I feel like the lineage that I came from and the women in my family, even watching my uncles and how they treated their wives, like a lot of their wives were stay-at-home wives. They took care of them. They gave them money. They houses, whatever they needed, cars. So I feel like I know as a woman, for when that time comes, like I know how my husband should be treated, and I know how I should be treated as a woman and as a wife. But if it happens, it happens, and if it don't, it don't. That's where I'm at in life.
I say this a lot on social media, where I truly believe that no matter what goes on in the world, that it doesn't change my perception of marriage, despite how horrible the dating pool is currently. It's the amen for me. But I don't feel that there was any pressure to become a wife. I do think that I have had great examples of a healthy relationship and marriage. And while I'm a firm believer of not making anyone else's relationship my goals, there are amazing things that I can take from all the healthy relationships that I've seen. I do come from a family of male cousins and uncles that definitely are tested out. Let me test them out, meet them, have a conversation with them, pull them to the side. As far as the one thing that I have expressed just with my dad is he gave his expectations when it came to dating, but he never, I felt like he never prepared me how to communicate well when it comes to men. That's something that I had to learn through trial and error. And it's to no fault of his. He might, I'm his first girl. So it was just me explaining to him that, I wish that we had a chance to sit down and talk about this. I wish I had known to ask you these questions so I didn't have to go through this process. So it's just, I always want to tell people now, especially men who have daughters, to really take your time and prepare them to not just to be a wife per se, but just how to interact and really communicate with men, because it's not something that is just taught. It's not taught in school, so they're going to learn it from somewhere, and you don't want social media to be the place where they learn
Especially in this day and age.
especially this day
And
and
these
age.
men nowadays are a different breed too.
That is true.
So some men, I don't know that your dad might not have known how to tell you how to talk to these men.
I think, I could definitely say that. I think that
Yeah.
could be just part of what it is. Like, because my mama, Steve Harvey said, girl, I don't care what Steve Harvey for himself said. It don't work.
Like
So-
my dad gave us like rules, like don't let a man put his hands on you.
Yeah,
He needs
like
to be
those,
a
yeah.
provider and be respectful. Like that could be anybody. That's not really helping me prepare to date someone. So it's like it was just some things that I give my parents grace because maybe they weren't taught it and they weren't prepared to share that type of information.
But I think also just thinking about that generation, like a lot of them married young. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then also men actually really courted women, not this new age prostitution. 'Cause that's kind of what it is. Like they actually courted women. They actually really took time versus what we see now. So like even with my dad, like I went back to therapy because I realized that in my dating world that there were the elements of my dad that I was seeing these men. And I'm like, I can't navigate these things because I haven't navigated this with my dad. So that was a big, like, pivotal moment for me, because it's realizing, like, my emotional, me never feeling safe with my emotions with men, because I never felt safe with my emotions with my dad. So it was me, like, coming to terms with that. And I think it's really is a generational thing. And then also, when you're first daughters, you know, sometimes the man struggles with that. And it's the reality of the situation. So definitely, I agree with Pink, especially when it comes to these kids, like the little girls I service. I'm always like, dads, especially if I have male friends that have daughters, like, please, like, really be there for your daughter, especially with that emotional piece, because they really need that quality time.
So as we transition into the next subject, career-wise, did your career choose you, or did you choose your career? Yeah.
Mine chose me.
I always say my resume is very padded and diverse. I got my undergraduate degree in sociology with a minor in criminal justice. So I started off as a mental health therapist for children. And while it is beautiful to work with children, it is a beautiful experience. It was not what God called me to do.
Glory to God. Glory to God.
It wasn't that. And I said, I can't do this. And so I navigated to working in corporate. And I worked for Fortune 500, Fidelity, and FIS. And that in itself was also a journey, because while I realized I started to love working in banking and finance, there are certain parts of corporate, especially being young, being African American, and being a female, that you can lose yourself trying to identify with the other races that you work with, and especially how you look, how you present yourself, your style. Like, I've always been someone who's mainly wore colored hair and, you know, bold lashes, and you do have to tone that down. So I started to tone that down, and then I realized this is me. I'm not going to tone it down. So I'm just going to be me, and you can, you know, accept that or not. And that was also part of my womanhood and figuring myself out in my identity. And so then I honestly went to a part that I didn't like my job no more. And it wasn't the fact that I didn't like what I do. I just didn't like the management that I had. I was a new mother in my mid-20s. When my daughter came out, she was a NICU baby. She stayed in NICU for a month, and I could not handle the mental pressure of having a manager who did not understand, who pushed me and forced me and had these crazy boundaries and rules and agendas around, I can't hear your daughter in the background, and you need to show me this for your daughter and show me that your daughter's here, that she's not with you. And I was completely drained on all aspects. And I remember crying and praying to God, like, I can't do this, but at the same time, I cannot be jobless. It was both. And so I went through that process, and then God said, I can give you better, but you're going to have to wait for it. And I spent 7 months, 8 months unemployed, crying. I had a great supportive parent, supportive aunt, supportive siblings that helped and really covered me and my daughter as we went through that. And then I got to a job, shout out to the Urban League.
Yes, Urban League.
That not only was able to support me in being a parent and have an amazing manager, but also found something that I love to do even more. So not only do I still get to work with numbers and finance, but I also get to, like, help people, which is what I really love to do, which is why I got my sociology degree. So I found a blend of both. Nice. So now I'm in my career where I like my career. Like, I like this. I like, you know, numbers, and I like helping people, and I like being here and, you know, in this little comfy area that I'm in right now. God gonna do something again and move me again. But right now, I just be like, yeah, just let me chill here for a second. No more roller coasters right now.
You said George chose you, and God bless you with kids every day.
Yeah. So I always have had a love for kids. Even as a child, when I would be in daycare, I would always be with like the little babies, the newborns and stuff like that. And kids have literally always been drawn to me. I did want to be a pediatrician when I first went away to college, but then when I got into that biology, I was like, this ain't it. Gotta change it. But so I changed my major to criminal justice with a minor in juvenile justice because I thought I wanted to be a juvenile probation officer. So once I got my degree in criminal justice, I ended up going to work for Prince George's County Public Schools as a dedicated aide, and I worked in a transition program, which was with kids who have emotional disabilities and autism. And I loved it. My very first day on the job, shout out to Toomey, flipped the desk, very first day. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? Oh, I'll just follow him down the hallway. So they was like, oh, that's normal. Everybody in the class like, he does that all the time. And so as I started to work with these kids, I became curious about their minds because I'm like, what makes you want to flip a desk at 7, 8 years old? Like, what are you so angry about? What makes you flip this switch when one minute you're fine, then the next minute you have torn up the entire classroom? And so with that, I ended up going to get my master's in psychology. So I went from a dedicated aide to a paraprofessional. And I don't know how I was making it off of $680 every 2 weeks. Jeez, Louise.
Different time.
Definitely. So once I got my master's, I ended up leaving PG County because they was not paying. Went and worked in a non-public school. Kind of did the same thing, but made more money. So I went from a para to a dedicated aide, but I was making more money as dedicated aide. That was a very interesting time because I tell people all the time, white sped and black sped is not necessarily the same thing. It's very different. That school I dealt with a lot of racial adversities, much like what I'm dealing with this school year. Anywho, dealt with a lot of racist stuff, and I got to the point where for my mental health, I said I can't do it. Like I was gonna be sold back into slavery. I was called all type of niggas and with the hard ER, all type of black bitches. Now, mind you, these are middle school and high school white children that were saying these things. And I just got to the point it was like I couldn't do it anymore. So I wanted to teach. At that school, I had the opportunity to teach, but because the position that I was in, I was the highest paid program facilitator. That's what they called us. I was the highest paid in the building because of my education, but they wanted me to take a pay cut to teach. I said, I know you lying. So my educational aide was like, don't sign that, don't sign anything. And the literally what the lady said to me was like, I mean, it's only a $13 a day difference. Girl, I drive 60 miles because I was working all the way out by Fort Belvoir. So if you know where that is, that's a long drive. So Pathways, which is a non-public school, gave me an opportunity to teach in Maryland. So I taught in non-public for like 4 years, something like that. And it was honestly my friends. And shout out to Reverend Aaron at COH, Big Brother, who kind of encouraged me to teach. Like all my friends was like, you will be a great teacher and all this other stuff. So I did. And I have been in special education for the last 13 years. This is year 9 as a teacher, and now I'm in middle school.
The pauses is coming.
That's whole different breed, and also another reason why I had kind of left working with the white children is because I wanted to work with babies that look like me, and I wanted to inspire young females, especially, like you can be yourself and still be successful within your career. So teaching is very ghetto. these days. And as someone who has worked with kids since I was 18, because I started off in camp, so I've literally felt like I've seen a transition from not only from kids, but from parenting as well. So don't get me wrong. I will say that my district pays us very well. Shout out to that raise I just got. They pay us very, very well, but they really do have to pay us because of what we deal with. So I love the kids, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to work with them in this capacity as an educator. But shout out to all my SPED babies. SPED has my heart. You got to be a little SPED to work in SPED, so I might be a little SPED.
Ooh. So my career chose me. I did not choose my career. I have a degree in business and legal administration. I work directly in legal administration. I work for a law firm where every day is a struggle, for sure. Teaching has different types of rewards. You may not see it at the beginning.
Yes.
Several times I've met people who kind of, I'll say they were their own prophets. I was at a church, First Baptist of Glenarden, some years ago. They had a speaker, and afterwards I went up and I said, "Oh, how much I enjoyed, listening to him, his sermon." And before he even really got into conversation, he said, "Are you a teacher?" And I was like, "Ooh." I was like, "I was supposed to be." He said, "No, you are." And so years passed again. I'm out. Someone else did the same thing. It was that calling. And so growing up, age 3 and 1, that's what I wanted to be, was a teacher. And so many people, I don't even know if my nieces know that, but yes, several times over, I felt like I was supposed to be teaching. And what I later learned was that teaching is not necessarily a classroom setting.
Right.
It could be teaching in life, teaching some other type of education for anyone. And so at some given point, I will get out of the legal part, which I actually do legal accounting, which I've done for over 30 years, and get into the teaching that God has called on my life. But yes, I chose a career. I've been doing legal accounting for a very, very long time, right out of school. And so eventually I will retire from that and get into teaching.
Be blessed. Okay. The whole armor of God. Amen.
Okay, so my path is kind of all over the place. When I was in high school, I decided I wanted to be a child psychologist. So that was going to be my path. That's what I was doing. I came up here. I grew up in Florida. I'm from Florida. But I have my 2 aunts, the aunts I was talking about, they lived here. So that's how I ended up here. And I had an uncle, Uncle Frank. Shout out Uncle Frank in heaven. Hey. He was like, "If you move up here, you can go to Howard and we'll get you a car so you can live with us and then you could just drive to school every day." They live in Rockville.
Oh. Oh, no.
So I came up here.
Why they play with you like that?
I came up here when I was 16. I went to Howard on the campus. They were on spring break. We were on spring break. I didn't know that the calendars are the same educationally in Florida and in Maryland. So the Howard that I saw was not the Howard that I saw when I moved back here. But I ended up not going to Howard because they never even said, like, you got in, you didn't get in, we don't know what you're doing, we didn't get your application.
Ooh, that
and
sounds
everybody
like that HBCU there.
Yeah, everybody that I talked to was like, that's not uncommon. But anyway, so in all of that, and to my friends we was talking earlier, I got my first job at Blockbuster Video. I'm a movie girl. Right? That was my first job, and I loved it, right? Because I'm a movie buff, and it was just fun, like getting to see all your high school friends coming in, and we wasn't doing no work. We was in there laminating, like everything. I don't know if y'all remember, but Blockbuster, you laminate your little Blockbuster membership card. We was laminating hall passes, pictures, like we was laminating everything in there, but. I enjoyed it, and I ended up transferring from Florida up here with that Blockbuster Video job. And Blockbuster at the time closed at midnight, so my aunt was like, "We're not finna be picking you up at midnight." And I'm like, "It's Rockville. I could just walk home." She's like, "You won't." So I had to get another job. And I started working like in a drugstore. And it was like the retail bug just kind of bit me, so to speak. And I was doing that for years. And then, you know, just kind of retail. And then I ended up working at Ralph Lauren. And I loved it. And it was fun, but it was interesting because I do not fit their aesthetic, you know, black woman, thick girl, locks in my hair, glasses, not this big, not, you know, like, oh my God, although I am sometimes like that.
Yes,
But you know, I didn't fit their aesthetic, but I went there and I rocked it, right? So everywhere I went, I made money for them. And I realized like I'm really good at making people money because I like people. I like talking to people. I like, you know, getting to know who they are. Letting
she
them
talked
get
to
know
everybody
me.
after church.
I do. I do. I was a cheerleader from 8 to 18, so it stuck. But I ended up working for Ralph Lauren for 18 years. And then an opportunity came along where I was able to get into the federal government. During COVID, I was like, I walked into a season of yes. And I was like, whatever opportunity, God, whatever you bring me, I'm going to say yes, right? As long as I know it's of you. And I was listening, paying attention. And every time something came along, I'm like, yep, I'm going to do that. Yep, I'm going to do that. Yep, I'm going to do that. Because I would always get like this little signal from God, like, okay, you can do that. No, you can't do that right there. But you can do that over there. And so when the opportunity came, I jumped, right? I took it was a, what do you call it? Not when you work for the contractor. It was a contractor job. Minnow brain, contractor job. And I did that for like 8 months. And then I became a federal worker. And then before I could become a full federal worker, I was furloughed. I was laid off in February because, you know, I was still probationary. I was a part of that group. And then I was brought back in March. And now I'm furloughed because I'm in the federal government. But I will say this, I appreciate everything that I learned from working in retail because that taught me a lot. And I was actually able to use, because I did end up, like I said, going back to school as an adult. I got my degree in human relations. It was the closest thing to what I was already studying, which was mental health, because the child psychology thing never left. But I realized, like you, I can't work with the kids. I can't deal with the trauma because I'm a thug, but I can't deal with other people's trauma because then I become soft and, you know, I got to stay a thug because, you know.
Sensitive gangster.
So, you know, yeah, like I had to, you know, maintain my G status.
You can still be a thug.
But I ended up, thank God for Community of Hope AME Church because I ended up working with the youth there. Reverend Wells, shout out to you, sir. Thank you for teaching me all I know about working with youth and being a youth leader. I appreciate that more than anything. And so I still was able to work with kids because I couldn't do it. I was working at Department of Human Services in an internship. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, it was just too traumatic. So, and my uncle kept telling me, too, because he was a chief then. And he was like, I don't know if you can do this. And I'm like, no, you can do it. I can do it because we the same. This is the same uncle that was supposed to get me the car. The car ain't never come, by the way. But it's all good. I don't regret coming here. But, you know, so I used all of that stuff working in retail and dealing with people because people be peopling.
They sure do.
And so, you know, you learn how to, you know, I don't know. I guess people, you know, when they come and they shop and they mad or their credit card don't work or whatever, and then they start taking it out on my sales associates. And what you're not going to do
Because
is
you
that,
broke.
That's how
right?
What you're not gonna do.
Like, that's what you're not going to do. So, you know, that protective spirit is still in me and it's never left. And so I'm always, like, looking out and making sure everybody's okay. But, you know, don't sleep on the retail workers because, you know, they carried us through COVID. You know, I was thanking them. I recently had to fly somewhere. And I thank the TSA people because I'm like, you know, y'all here and y'all working, you know, on furlough. And I appreciate y'all. And that little bit went a long way with, you know, the people that I talked to. But I'm like, listen, you know, we got to look out for each other. So, yeah, so that's my path. I'm furloughed now, but I'm good because, praise God, Jesus, I saved my money when I went back in November on the 6th, the morning of the 6th. I was like, yeah, we going to need to save some coin because it's about to be crazy. And so I appreciate, you know, the federal government. I learned a lot working in the federal government, mostly about myself and who I am and what I'm capable of. And let me just say this, federal workers are not lazy. Federal workers are not trying to get over. Federal workers are helping us move this country forward, and we work with other agencies, we work with other businesses, we work with other people, and those relationships that I formed with outside companies, right? I appreciate those more than anything. Like, you work in a law firm, right? You working with Urban League teachers. Like, we end up crossing paths with these people in different ways, and we all work together. So that whole narrative of, well, these agencies aren't doing anything. Yeah, it's always some bad apples in any agency. I mean, look at the federal government. Okay, but
Mediocre
anyway,
white men.
who's
Yeah.
running it and over it. We're not gonna make this political, but I'm just saying. But it's like those people that are working under all these people that are running everything. Those are the people that are doing the work. Those are the people that
The
are
ones in
making
the
things
trenches.
move forward, right? Those are the people that are kicking ass and taking names. And I could say, when I came back to work in March, everybody who was who trained, I came back. I was told I was coming back on March 31st, but I couldn't go in because I didn't have a badge, I didn't have a keyboard, laptop, nothing. I called my coworker. I told her, hey, I got my email that I'm coming back. She went in, she ordered all of my stuff. She was like, you're gonna go tomorrow to go get your badge, all of that stuff. The next morning, she called me, excuse me, and I'm like, good morning. She's like, it's not a good morning. And I was like, what's going on? She and the whole team were let go in that furlough in April. Again, I will say God protects me from a lot of stuff, and he protected me from that, because I would have been broken if I was in there and all those people who trained me were packing up their stuff and leaving. I was devastated, and I was home. But those people, those are the people that really run the federal government. Those are the people that are really helping people out and making sure that everybody has what they need. And in this time, that needs to be recognized, because those people are gone, and we are at a standstill about a lot of stuff. So I just, back to the career question, I don't regret leaving Ralph Lauren. I feel like I had learned everything that I could learn from there, and it was time for me to do something different. And I truly believe God has a plot twist, so stay tuned, me and my movie references. But I don't regret it, and I do appreciate everything that I've learned working for the federal government. I appreciate all the people that I work with now. But I more so appreciate all the people that I worked with, all the people that trained me. I talk to those people like all the time, because they're like my family, and I really appreciate them. So that's my career ladder moment.
Yeah, I think because we are a government city, it hits harder for
Yes.
us. Like this,
Very
it
much so.
really, like, there isn't anyone that wasn't impacted that we don't know. Like,
Right.
in some form or fashion. So thank you for recognizing them.
Absolutely.
So I started working at a very, very early age because I had a grandmother who had her own business. So I would say I have a background in customer service. Did not know that was going to end up being my career, because I actually went into courses to be in childcare. I worked for parking planning for almost 10 years. I loved all the kids that everybody else hated. I don't want to say hated. They were a little bit more difficult.
Rambunctious.
Yes, so that was my crew. I always had them honed in. I created a lot of programs when I was with parking planning that I enjoyed, from cooking. We had a girls group. I did plays, fashion shows. I had so much fun at parking planning that when that season ended, I was lost. I didn't know where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do next. It was a journey. And through that journey, I ended up in Texas for almost 2 years and had to start from scratch. So customer service is where I ended up. I will say, for someone who does not have a degree, I have been blessed in every position that I've had. It may have taken a lot of patience to get to certain things. Even with moving back to Maryland, I was blessed to have a job with social services. That was the most trying job I've ever had because of management. Where I literally just started hating to come to work because of management. And I dealt with the public. I actually had to sit and interview people who were getting temporary cash assistance. One of the most complicated things that I could do, because by my words I can control, my facial expressions I cannot. And so on top of that, of you could have a great caseload, but it's always going to be one person that try it. And I had that one person, and I had to pray for her and myself because I thought I was going to jail one day. And I realized that management did not care. Then people told me, just stay upstairs for the rest of the day. How did that help me if she followed me outside? Didn't help nothing. I said, y'all don't care because I lose my job and y'all still going to give her some money. So I went out on a limb. My friend told me to apply for federal government because my daddy couldn't get me in his 37 years. He was there.
Fort Knox.
My friend said, hey, this agency is hiring. You should go apply. Before they even gave me the firm job offer, I put in a 2-month notice. Like, I'm going to get out of here. Whether they give me the job or not, I had 2 months to make a plan and figure it out. Birthday came in 2021. It was my last day of work. See y'all later. I didn't even want to tell them where I was going because I was so scared that management was going to find a way to mess it up. I just saved everything from my exit interview and HR. Started for the federal government. I think I was excited until my first day and realized it was chaos. It was very unorganized. But I'm thankful to be here. This November will make 4 years. I've been able to excel in a lot of areas there. And as you said, I learned a lot about myself working with federal government. The patience that I do have, because some days I'll be like, Lord, I'm not going to have a job by the time I finish being a public servant. To say what I do without telling you the agency, I'm going to just say, a lot of America, y'all need to get on social media, and some of these memes y'all see about call centers, please take heed to what not to do. A lot of people are very privileged and very rude, and sometimes I ain't all the way there. So, like Steve Harvey said, he not done with me yet. I definitely take that into my job every day. Because we are furloughed, but yet we are still required to work and serve the public. I'm praying that I get a paycheck next week, but I don't think it's going to happen. But it has definitely I've learned to give people grace, but still learn how to have boundaries. Like, I think one thing, if you ever been in customer service, sometimes people forget the human side of it.
Yes.
Where we still have our own struggles, and half the people who work in those positions, we don't get paid enough to deal with some of the nonsense.
That part.
And
You and they mamas.
we are one paycheck. Like, while you're waiting for your funds that you're trying to get, we are one paycheck away from being in the same position. And so please just be patient, treat people with respect, and understand that I do try not to take it personal, but sometimes the public can make it personal. And I'll be having to So I started telling people, have the day you deserve. Have the day you deserve. But customer service has really shown me that I do have the capability to be patient, not just with myself, but with others, allowing people grace and strength that I didn't know that I had. Because I know sometimes when I work from home, I'd be like, I don't need this job. But I definitely do. In this economy, I need every coin. Every other week, we have a chance to be home. I wish we didn't have to go in the office because paying to park is ridiculous. In Baltimore City, the traffic alone. The traffic
Whew,
alone.
Jesus. If y'all was to hear our group chat in the morning.
At least twice a week, me or Phyllis are in the group chat just live it in the traffic.
The traffic is not given.
It's not giving
Furlough.
Because one thing
outside now. They outside.
Why they outside when I'm trying to go to work at 7:15 in the morning? Where are you going?
They outside.
I can't even begin to tell you
It
how
don't
much
make
I
no
can
sense.
relate to what you just
But
said.
part of it is that a lot of agencies that they're saying are furlough are still being required to report
Right.
to work. And they saying we gonna get paid, but where the money come from?
Right.
Where my tax dollars going, please? Because I just finally did my taxes for last year. Don't judge me. Right? Don't judge me. Okay? And I'm looking like, where the money going? Why y'all taking it?
They got your money.
They got it.
And
That's
I
exactly
just want to throw this out there, just a subliminal message is that a lot of the things that people complain about tax-wise, and y'all think it was one administration, just pay attention and track it back to another administration. Because please pay attention. Don't be calling and saying certain things to me because it's a recorded line, baby. It's a recorded line. And I ain't trying to get caught saying I don't like this president because I still need my job.
Well,
But definitely, I just ask that regardless of what career path anyone is in, like, treat people with respect. You don't know what they're going through at home. Some people are experiencing extreme hardship, but they still show up every day with a smile and treat people with respect. So please remember to do
Yes,
that.
love a teacher.
every day. It's interesting that we're talking about this. So my remote schedule used to be 1 week a month. I was in the office and the rest was remote. Very unique. A coworker did something that changed that. So
It's always that one person.
It's always.
suddenly,
Yeah.
after 4 or 5 years of being remote and working it out, I now have to go back 3 days in the office and 2 where I am remote. And of course, I'm the new kid on the block, so I literally have the worst remote schedule, which for me is mentally, I am wiped out.
Yeah.
Like every day, people are coming by my desk checking on me, and they're like, "Are you okay?" No, I'm not okay. Don't come back and ask me when am I coming in the office because y'all already know I don't want to be here. So literally, that has happened the last 2 weeks. But God is in control.
Absolutely.
I do have to say, I appreciate that the government, for the government employees that have to show up and not get paid, that struggle in and of itself, I cannot imagine. And that's real. So that keeps me kind of grounded in understanding that I still have a job, thank you, Lord, and that someone else's battle and struggle is a whole lot worse than
Absolutely.
mine. But if at any given time we can come together like we are now and help one another, because even in the smallest ways, I know showing some type of support. I think one of the churches just recently, I'm not sure who it was giving out gift cards, and I think
Ebenezer.
tried to share that. So if anyone has any information like that, let's all just continue to keep sharing it.
I will definitely say that y'all nieces and nephews get on my nerves. But on the way to work, so me and my work bestie, like we talk in the morning. We're always like, we're grateful to God that we have a job. As much as teachers get a lot of slack and a lot of negative things thrown at us, at the end of the day, we know we need it. And y'all kids need us, parents need us, even though y'all treat us like we babysitters. But even now, even with the traffic and stuff, I'm literally just like, the building gonna be there when I get there. So I have my moments where I'm fussing, but I'm always like, the building gonna be there when I get there, the kids gonna be there. I'll get there when I get there, and it be me and Jesus on the road sometimes in the morning. Then I call the reverend, and I talk to him sometimes. So, yeah, but the traffic be trafficking. I live
All day.
10 miles away from my school, and it takes me 45 minutes to an hour to drive 10 miles.
You be like, how?
How? When I've been taking the same route for the last 4 years, this year I feel like I've gone on a world tour of Northeast every day, riding past where stadium was at and everything, just world tour.
All right, so at this point, we are going to open it up to the audience members. If you guys have any questions, comments, or anything related to what we've heard thus far.
If we don't have any comments, then we're going to go ahead and break for our 15-minute intercession, and we will be right back.
All right.